Hi everyone, if your dog struggles with leash reactivity, then stay tuned because I'm going to cover some techniques that will help you right away no matter where your dog is at with their training. Before we get into addressing leash reactivity, we first need very clear communication. So I want the marker system and I want a lot of engagement. I also want a great focused heel using food and the marker system. We need to master that under low to no distractions. So in the home or in your own yard, master those things before we ever start getting into situations where we're going to lose control. Now, I don't want any dog that I'm working with to ever be practicing undesirable behavior. So I don't want to go and try to address this problem when they haven't mastered all these other things yet. So even though we have clear communication, and even if we have a great focused heel with no distraction, we're still not ready to jump into the major struggles. We need to address this where it's easier for our dog. We need to practice this where we don't need it, so it works where we do need it. Now, when I say practice, I'm talking about practice ignoring. We want to teach our dog that it's rewarding to ignore. And before we can do that, we have to start understanding really how our dog's brain is operating in these situations. Dogs are acting on instinct when they're going into a reactive state. They feel like they're supposed to be doing that. What we want to do before our dog has any opportunity to practice those behaviors, we want to have a way to interrupt it so that we can catch the fuse and not the explosion. All this starts with understanding the orienting response. The orienting response happens when there's movement or some novelty in the environment. It even happens with us. But with our dogs, when there's a movement off in the distance, they will very often go into the orienting response. So they'll freeze. And even though they're not in a reactive state yet, the orienting response is happening in the primal brain. It's sort of assessing, what is this novelty? Let's identify it. If it happens to be one of their triggers, they're going to start loading arousal. And if you keep moving towards it, the more they recognize that this is something that they're concerned about, the more likely they are to explode into the reactivity. We don't want that. We don't want them to practice that. So, when our dog goes into the orienting response, if we catch it at the right distance, our dog will freeze, and as they're assessing, they will break eye contact for a brief moment, a split second, just to assess the surrounding environment. When they break eye contact, that's our moment. We need to seize that moment, and we need to use our communication, and then we need to divert their line of sight using the communication we built through the marker system and through the excellent focused heel using the marker system. Breaking line of sight is a game changer in the beginning stages of addressing leash reactivity, because if a dog can't make line of sight with their trigger, then they don't load the arousal that leads to reactivity. If we can break line of sight, we're like 90%. We're so close to mastering this leash reactivity problem. In the beginning, I don't want to practice this where my dog struggles. I want to make it easy for me, and I want to make it easy for my dog. I want to practice this on something that they simply track and fixate on. Maybe it's a child running across a playground. Maybe it's a squirrel. Some dogs struggle with reactivities to squirrels though. Some dogs are reactive to children. We want to try to set up situations where we can just get them going into that orienting response where they'll freeze and then they'll break eye contact on their own. If it is one of their triggers, like if my dog is dog reactive, then I need to be very good distance away, and I need to have a wide open space, because any kind of feeling pinned in or any kind of confinement, like on a trail where there's only linear movement, that's going to add to my dog's struggle, because restraint builds frustration. And if my dog doesn't feel like they can move freely or move naturally, then that's going to add to their arousal level, which is going to increase my likelihood of getting an explosion. We're trying to avoid the explosion. We're trying to make it easy. So without further ado, let's get to the park and practice this in the real world. Okay guys, my goal is to find a place in the park where
we're not gonna run into his triggers. So right here, there aren't really any dogs around. Yes, good boy. And now I'm gonna practice the focused heel, just like I was doing in the training room. Let's go, no, let's go. Yes, good boy, good boy. We're gonna do this for a while until we get him to unwind a little bit. And I know there's some dogs over in that field, and then we'll start getting into the rewarding him to ignore things. Let's go, heel. Yes. Nope, let's go. Yes. I want you to notice, I've got a long line and it's attached to me. He's got a lot of freedom of movement. Let's go. Good boy. Yes, that's gonna allow him to feel a lot more comfortable than if he were restricted on a leash. Yes, good boy. Good boy. Go. Yes. Let's go, buddy. Yes. Right now, at this stage in his rehabilitation, the movement really helps him because it gives that nervous energy somewhere to go. Let's go. Nope. Yes, go boy. Go boy. So I'm going to keep him moving, keep that brain moving forward, keep his mind activated. He's fixating now on the runner. Yes, good boy. As soon as he breaks line of sight, I just reward anything he fixates on. See if we can get him to do it again. He looks. Yes, good boy. I know it's hard to see from this angle, guys, but that's exactly what I'm looking for right now. Yes, good boy. As soon as he looks at the dog, I'm getting ready to reward him for looking away. Let's go, buddy. Heel. Yes. Heel. Yes, good boy. Anytime he looks at me, I mark it with yes, and I reward. Yes, good boy. Again, he's looking at that same dog that just passed, and when he turned to come to me, I want to reward him for that. Lots of space, lots of freedom of movement. This takes a big load off. If I had him on a short lead, yes, good boy. Looking at that same dog. We can practice it as long as he looks at something, anything. The moment he looks away, I want to capture that. The more we practice this, the more likely he's going to be, instead of just looking away in general, he's going to look to me. And then I'm starting to actually really get to the rehabilitation process. There's some dogs coming now right behind the camera. I'm going to try to get him. There he goes. Yes, good boy, good boy. He looked that way, but the point is he was looking at the dogs, and then when he looked away, I want to reward for looking away. Same dogs. Yes, good boy. Now he's giving it to me more and more readily. And this is going to help him immensely when we actually get into the on leash, on a short leash, and having to walk by dogs. This is the foundation.
All right, guys, so here we are now in a big wide open field. There's lots of dogs around. This dog is very active playing with his human. There's a dog over here, right there. But this dog with a lot of movement is going to be especially good to practice on. There's another dog right over here, off in the distance. Okay, so as we move closer, it's going to be a challenge for our boy Chance here. And there's even dogs further off in the distance. So let's move closer towards it, and then we'll keep an eye on him. Okay, so now we're going, and he doesn't really notice yet. I'm allowing him to sniff, to do what he wants. Right now, it's all about him making choices. Okay, there he notices. He's watching. Yes, good boy! Good boy. I hope you caught that. It happened really fast. Let's try it again. He's looking. Okay, he's moving towards it. Yes, good boy, good boy. So he's gonna learn it's rewarding to ignore. And he has the freedom to walk away. He doesn't need to use aggression to tell this dog to give him space. A little too far. So, buddy, let's go. Come on, buddy. Good boy. Good boy. I'll wait for him to look away now. Waiting for it. Waiting for it. Yes, good boy. Good boy. That's it, guys. This is what we want to practice. Okay guys, that's enough practice for now, but I'd like to wrap up with a little discussion about the food reward in general. Some of you may be saying, you know, my dog is too anxious when they're outside. They don't take food. Or when my dog sees another dog, he won't take food. Guys, it's so important that you are only feeding your dog from your hand and through the work. So once your dog has mastered the stuff inside, then maybe your dog needs to take their meal mostly outside. We can also experiment with higher value food reward. But wherever my dog struggles most, that's going to become their only opportunity to have their meal, and we're going to do it through these types of exercises. Okay guys, so work on that food drive, do it in the home, get your dog used to taking food from your hand and working for it. That's going to give you a lot of mileage when you actually start trying to apply it out in the real world. Hope this video helped you guys.